Good morning to our beautiful community and welcome to Light the Torch. My name is Ella and I am so grateful you're here to start your day with us. Today we're diving into a raw, beautifully layered story that explores love, loss, and the quiet unraveling of identity. This is a certain kind of sadness by the incredibly talented Jillean McClory. So, this book is about what happens when we make the right choice but at the wrong time, when love and obligation collide, and how we rediscover ourselves in the aftermath. So, Jillian, welcome. It's such a joy to have you with us today.
Well, thank you so much. That was a great synopsis. You hit the nail on the head. Well done.
Well, thank you. Now it's time for you to share a little bit of that so we can start at the beginning. What was the very first, let's say, spark that led to a certain kind of sadness? Was it a moment? Was it a character? Or a feeling you couldn't share?
Well, that's a really good question. What would the inspiration? I think, I really think, my mother had passed and she was a wonderful mother, the best. And she was always so supportive and encouraging. And I wondered what it would feel like if you didn't have a mother who was supportive, who sort of questioned everything that you did and was completely absent from your day to day experience. And that's how Rachel really was born. And all of the unpacking of the trauma that comes with having a disconnect from your parentage. And her parents were very involved in her career, in their careers. So she was sort of left over to the kindness of strangers. And once you start playing with it, then I thought, what would it feel like if you happened to fall in love with someone that you had known for a very long time, and there was a bit of an age gap? How would that work out? So that's really what started. And of course, I'm a mother of girls, my daughters, and all their little friends. At some point ended up at my kitchen table with lots of questions. So it was a combination of all of those things. And because we're a house of women, my husband is terribly outnumbered. Um, there's a lot of hormonal, cry fests going on. So you just navigating that and always pulling from the great advice that my mother gave. She left a little too early, but made a very huge impression.
I think it's really interesting what you just shared. Because we all have different ways of approaching the relationship with our mothers, but still there's something universal about it. So I
Yes.
think it's interesting that you use that as an inspiration. And that shows as the story unfolds with such emotional honesty. But I'm wondering how long did it take you from concept to final draft, and how did Rachel's journey evolve as you wrote?
Well, I that's a good question as well. It I first started to write it. My children they were at school all day, and I've always been a writer. I've always had writing in my life, in my whole career, copywriter, editor. I had a history column for quite a few years, so writing has always been part of it. At some point, I always thought that that was going to be the end game, that I was going to try my hand at a book. I had written nonfiction books that were commissioned, but never a fictional book. So uh, it took me about 2 years in between work and family to write the book. And it's amazing how it evolves. You write it and then you give it to your uh, beta readers, and then they have a little bit of input. And uh, it's funny when I decided, okay, it's done. I'm going to see what happens. Uh, I had entered a contest, and uh, I it was sort of right across Canada, and it was agents and uh, publishers, and they could give you little hearts if they liked your story. And I got a few hearts, and that's really how it all started. So uh, it was a wonderful experience. I love the process of writing. It doesn't really matter to me what I'm writing, but I must admit, I really enjoy the fiction because you really can get into it. And like you said, it's layering. And I'm a layerer. That's the kind of writer I am. I'll think of a scene, and then I, I'll just layer the scene, keep on layering the scene until I get it where I want it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did, and it did
Okay.
perfectly.
Oh,
Yeah,
wonderful.
that's such an interesting process. And now, maybe if you can share with us what was the most difficult scene for you to write emotionally, and how did you move through it as a writer?
That's a great question. I think one of the more difficult things to write was I'm sort of a perky sort, and Rachel is a very sad girl. Um, I think writing the parts where she felt very abandoned and very lonely, and I was surprised. There was a few scenes that I was writing about how sad she was that I kind of got a little sad myself. Had a wee bit of a cry, a bit of a lie down before I had to go back and get it right. But I think those are always difficult. Or when there's an argument, I often wonder how other writers, uh, deal with mean scenes. I have a really tough time. Uh, the mother character can be a bit mean. The argument between mother and daughter at I think it's around a quarter into the book was very hard to write because I never argued with my mother. So it was very hard to make her mean. so that was those two things, the mother daughter argument and the sadness, that because you have to dig deep and uh, put yourself in that situation. Like, how would that feel? I hope I hit the mark.
I think it's interesting that you talk about Rachel as this sad character, as you know, she is torn between love and autonomy and also past and future. So, how do you create emotional authenticity in moments of both heartbreak and hope?
Yes, because I mean, she does have a string of hope that she can't seem to let go of, that things, a deep belief that this is that he does love her. She can't. It feels too authentic for it not to be real, and that journey, like you said at the top there, that it really is a journey, because I don't think that love is just all about romance. It's also about growth and self-discovery, and I think that's the arc that she takes, uh, just sort of digging deep and reaffirming everything that she believes, and then weaving in scenes that shows the bright parts of her character as well, that she's not always sad. She's actually, I find her funny. There's she has a good sense of humor even when she's not at her best, and she's not an angry person, and she's very kind-hearted, but she just finds herself in circumstance that she can't sort of get above or around. And unfortunately, uh, it is a fact, we're not baked with self-respect. It takes a while for us to get there. And so that is really one of her major conflicts, is finding the self-respect to walk away from things where others might think she's being impulsive, Uh, and in some cases, she is impulsive. But I think that that's really being a 20 something. I remember 20. And it's a very difficult time. Uh, and I think people undermine that. You get that adage that this is the best time of your life. And sometimes it's just not. It's a bit of a suck fest. You're just getting out of school. You're trying to sit at the adult table, know what you want. You're navigating all kinds of new experiences, moving out of the house, living another life, uh, dealing with love and friends. And a lot of times during that 20 something, others are getting married and having babies, and uh, relationships fall by the wayside. And uh, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a growth spurt. But navigating that is difficult, I think. I don't think it's as easy. You should be enjoying yourself instead of, I know that it's difficult. I have daughters who are always, trying to figure it out, and it's tough, and trying to mother them without smothering them. So I think those are the normal things about a 20 something, and that's all of the experiences that Rachel has.
It's such a complex age, and you're learning, but at the same time, you're expected to learn some things already. So,
Yes.
but yeah, I
Yes.
think it's interesting that you share that and that you share Rachel as this complex character because as a writer, you know that characters sometimes surprise us. So, did Rachel or Morgan ever take the story in an unexpected direction that changed your original plan?
Yes, it did. That whole thing when you're in the creative flow, the plans that you make, the characters sort of take over. That really does happen. Uh, and I wouldn't have expected that Rachel would have responded certain ways, uh, but in keeping with her character, that's the way it went. So, but I had a basic idea of what I wanted to happen in the story, but there were a few dips and curves. Um, I think one of the things that one of my beta readers, I'm always fascinated by perspective. You have 10 people in a room, something happens, and you have 10 different stories. And one of them, she said that she was with Rachel all the way through. She was on her side, she completely understood. And then when it came to Morgan's point of view, and explaining what was going on with him, she said she sort of turned her opinion around. She started to see things from his perspective. I think that was probably one of the nicest compliments I've ever gotten, that she bought into, oh, so that's how he thinks. So he's not so aloof. So I thought that was interesting and unexpected.
Yeah, it really is interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And now before we continue, I just want to pause and honor what you have created here. Because a certain kind of sadness isn't just a novel. I think it's also a mirror for so many of us who've tried to love someone through their brokenness or chosen a path that looked right but felt all wrong. I think it's bold, it's honest and unforgettable. So, for everyone that is watching us, if you've ever wrestled with regret or resilience, I think that this book is for you. So, thank you
Oh,
for
that
that.
is so lovely for you to say. Oh my goodness.
No,
Because
it's
you
really
want
a
to
pleasure.
make things relatable, right? You
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure, you want people to be able to see themselves.
Yeah.
Because if you know yourself, you pretty much know everybody. Because we all have a similarity. We all have the hierarchy of needs that we want to attain. And that was so lovely. That was so nice of you to say. Aw, you've made my day.
No, thank you. It's really a pleasure to have you here. And yeah, what you said, I totally agree with you that the first step to do everything is just know yourself.
Yes.
And now that some time has passed in writing the book, what does a certain kind of sadness mean to you today compared to when you began?
That is an excellent question. I think one of the things that was very eye opening was the things that were sort of battering around in my head became clearer. There were certain themes that I wanted to address that I really didn't know when I set out that that's what I was trying to do. But I find that people are always sort of trapped within their circumstance, and they often feel that it's their fate. And that was one of the things that Rachel and Morgan both go through, is the circumstances that they find themselves in, and that it's really not fate, it's just the geography of their life. So I wouldn't have said that's what I set out to write about, but that is what ended up happening. And just the polarities of love, uh, because it's a love hate situation, it's joy, it's sadness. Uh, it's not an easy road, but having flawed people navigate those polarities, I wouldn't have said that I started out thinking that's what I was going to address, but I found it very interesting when the day was done that that is what I was writing about. The because connection is so important, and growth. I don't want to write about love as a surface thing. I would like to look a bit below there and see how people grow and give them space to who they are, whether they be right or whether they be wrong. Um, it's really not about right or wrong, it's more about the experience. And I wouldn't have said, I started out with writing an age gap, will they, won't they, chaotic first, forbidden love. And it ended up being more cathartic than that. So I think it was a bit of a growth spurt for me as well. I think it always is.
That's amazing, Jillian. And now, finally, what's the emotional truth you hope readers carry with them after they turn the last page?
Um, well, this is the first book in a series, and I hope that people walk away with, you know, seeing that it's okay to feel sad, that it's okay to not know what you're doing. Uh, it's okay to be a poor slob in love, but sort of digging deep and figuring out what it is that you want and what you stand for. I think that's really what I want them to walk away with, that their circumstance is their geography, as I said, and that being a 20 something can be a bit of a suckfest. And love and war seem to go hand in hand. And but the bottom line, I think, is that love is worth it. Even though it's chaotic, it's definitely worth it. I don't know. I think love is the most important thing. And there's so many different kinds of love. The love that she feels for the Hillier family, the love she feels for Morgan, the love she feels for Morgan's daughter. I mean, there's just the family in itself, the interconnection in the Hillier family, the brothers and sister. It's very lovely. I like that. I'm from a big Irish Catholic family, so we sort of worked as a clan. We did everything together, and the Hilliers are very much like that. So I hope people enjoy it and have a bit of a laugh every so often, and have a few a few moments where they think, oh, poor Rachel. But sometimes you just want to give her a hug, and sometimes you just want to smack her. So evoking emotion is really important.
Thank you, Jillian. And thank you for your honesty. Thank you for sharing your heart and your voice. I think it has been a privilege to share this space with you.
Oh my goodness, Ella, that's so lovely. I've enjoyed this. I was so nervous and you made me feel so comfortable. That's
That's
so
great.
nice.
That's great, Jillian. Thank you for that. And now
And
to
thank you for the wonderful things you said about the book and so on target.
now they're all true. It was a pleasure.
Oh, I'm so glad.
And now to everyone watching, you should know that A Certain Kind of Sadness is available now on Amazon. So go grab your copy, settle in with a cup of something warm, and let this story meet you wherever you are. And
Okay.
now, until next time, and keep your light shining, and remember that even in sadness, there's a strength. So thank you once again, Jillian, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.